Hi, everyone. Welcome back to WorkTech. I'm George LaRocque, and we are continuing with the Greenhouse Open video series. Greenhouse Open is taking place on May 24th and 25th at the Javits Center in New York City. You can click on the link wherever you're seeing this, whether it's in the article or on YouTube, and reserve your spot. And Greenhouse Open is one of my favorite events every spring. It's happening again. We'll be live in person. I'm really excited for it. And along those lines, I'm extra excited to be talking to Nadia Vatalidis from Remote. I've been following Remote for a while, and so I'm excited to learn more about it. Welcome, Nadia.
Thank you, George. I cannot be more excited to fly to New York City, to be honest. It will be my first international trip in a really long time. So really looking forward to Greenhouse Open and thrilled to be invited.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I've had my first business travel recently. And I have to say I was a little rusty. I gave myself a little extra time and I needed it. So yeah, that's all I have to offer you there.
Don't miss flights.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, well, if you could, let's start. If you could tell everyone a little bit about yourself and your role with Remote, and then a little bit about Remote.
Sure. So I live in sunny South Africa. I get to fully enjoy remote work, similar to our name. And I joined Remote because I really care about one specific thing that I think people, often view companies like this through one employer type lens or business lens. But I really like the other lens where we truly open opportunities for people in very rural locations or very rural countries to gain opportunities with amazing startups or tech companies or great aspirational global companies in the world, right? And at a stage in my career, I certainly felt a bit like that rural talent that couldn't work for a San Francisco-based tech startup. And that all changed in 2016 when I joined GitLab, which I was very lucky to go through hypergrowth with. And that very natural, next progression in my career was to join the company that makes that happen. And so that's really why I joined. We've scaled a ton. We were 70 people when I joined in December 2020, and we are now more than 900 employees globally in 60 different countries in the world.
Wow. And you're the VP of people through all of that growth. Talk about hyper growth. And the company, I know I track all of the growth capital coming into the space, and you're a unicorn 3 times over, right? I don't know if that's 3 unicorns or, mega unicorn, but with a valuation of over 3 billion, it's impressive. And so, the company offers an employer of record, solution. I'm very familiar with that, but for those who might not be familiar, can you explain just, simply what that is?
Absolutely. So if companies are planning to build global teams and would really like to expand globally, a great way to do that without, worrying about all the paperwork and administration and payroll that comes with that is to sign up with an EOR or employer of record like Remote. And we really do everything. And so what you need to focus on is, find that amazing talent, an amazing hire that you want to hire anywhere in the world. And we do everything else. I think also folks often don't realize what it takes to create an entity, right? The delays that comes with it, the tax, the amount of tax administration and payroll administration. And I love that we've just prioritized that in a beautiful product. And so our UI and UX is also built for people and folks that uses that daily. And so I'm also excited, this tech journey that we're on combined with this amazing people journey to build global teams around the world.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the most underestimate what it takes to create the entity, and that the complexity around compliance, in around the world, it goes down, it's not just a country level, it's a local level, county, province, or state. And you really need the right understanding of those regulations in any given place, and a system that can adapt because things change. In some Western countries, things are a little more consistently regulated, and it's on more of a cycle. But in most of the world, it just doesn't work like that. And I see these solutions as really opening up the world, to your point, for growth, especially with the challenge in finding talent. You can't look in your backyard anymore, right?
Yeah,
So now
absolutely.
you're obviously using your own solution. And you mentioned when we were chatting before, you're also a greenhouse customer as well as a greenhouse partner. That's what an interesting perspective. And what other types of companies are using remote? What does the customer profile usually look like?
It's certainly a ton of tech startups is using our product, but we have a lot of medium-sized enterprise companies that really wants to experience this global, I nearly want to say productive work opportunity, right? And so I think gone are the days. I think the one thing the pandemic did do is like, gone are the days where you have to hire in a 30-kilometer radius. And I think it's brought an opportunity to bring a bit of global wealth, to really bring some equal economic opportunities, but it's also brought a completely different perspective to your environment. I've certainly now noticed in people teams, this is my second people team that I'm building that are globally distributed. The one I'm in currently is in more than 13 time zones in itself. And this is just the people team within remote, right? And I've certainly seen like two core things that you can't find in a local like office environment. The one is this amazing innovative ideas and the perspectives that come from that. It's nearly like your own team can bring such broad diversity and diverse thinking to the people team that you're covering just way more things that you would have covered in an office environment in those first crucial years of a startup, right? You can do so much more just with this innovative thinking and ideas of how to solve problems, ideas that we should be considering, and even the way someone from a completely different culture would review feedback on an engagement survey has been very interesting for me to experience. Wow. But the second aspect to that is time zone diversity is something that we are not talking about enough and underestimating. Having folks in all these time zones just means that no one has to follow the sun, but the work gets done. So the productivity levels in these teams are incredibly high. And yet they can stop working when their day is done because there's someone else online. I love building very operational teams in that way and really leading into global distributed opportunities. And so I certainly have that privilege to do that at Remote. And this is the second time I've been able to do that. But it also brings just that level of opportunity to folks that wouldn't have been able to work for companies like these. That really excites me. And even like, not to be funny, but as someone that lives in South Africa, I think even the idea of having stock options in a San Francisco Bay or tech startup or international startup was something that was completely not achievable a few years back, or was something I wouldn't even imagine would happen. And so it's nice to see this becoming real for individuals all over the world. And now we're 900 of those. So yeah, it's been an incredible journey so far. I do want to touch on, you mentioned us using Greenhouse. I think being in the business of people data, I really like the fact that we have an integration. As someone that truly cares we have this candidate sort of journey and someone in a country that we're working with that we might not know how the rules and compliance and regulations work with that data, and having a platform like Greenhouse that what compliance is viable and all the security and due diligence they do, then combined with Remote that really cares about that global personal information and people data. Mm-hmm. And then building that integration was absolutely genius because there's no one manually having to do anything for that information to flow from the one to the other, right? And so it becomes a really seamless journey. And to me, the moment I can reduce administration and reduce risk to increase engagement opportunities with people rather than doing admin, I think that's just an amazing opportunity in the people space that a lot more, heads of people, chief of people, people officers, etc., are thinking about.
Yeah, that's the perspective. I think everyone, when we think about, how does an integration work, a lot of times we talk about the API and the technical bits and bytes of it. And that's important. Yeah. And we have people to cover that. But what's most important is, as the VP of people, what's your experience and your team's experience? And that word seamless means a lot. And I know remote probably integrates with other systems as well, but given it's a greenhouse event, we're focused there, and you've got such a great perspective. Now you're speaking at Greenhouse, and what will that session be about?
That's correct. I actually get to speak a bit about this sort of automated process and this integration between greenhouse and remote. I also get to share the stage with Good Time, with Jane from Good Time, which I'm so excited about. We are definitely going to deep dive into how our tech stack works, right? As two individuals and two VPs of people at tech startups and in our sort of growing years. But we're also going to touch on how these different products are being used in the world. Like, what does remote do? Why does remote exist? What are the problems that we're solving for organizations? And just the evolution behind that, right? And the vision that we have well into the future.
Yeah, that's a great session. It's interesting that both of your companies are partners, but you're coming at this from a VP of people perspective. I like that. That's fantastic. And, to your point, you mentioned, why are people using remote? We had done a study with Greenhouse before the pandemic. And, one of the headlines out of that global study was that distributed work is the future. And you could see at that point, 54% of companies, and these were 3,000 companies, global. It was a global study, 1,000 employees or more, had some kind of distributed work offering, and they were leaning in on it. And so the pandemic just accelerated that, along with the challenges in talent and retention. So, it's a silver lining for remote, but I think, to your point, it's also a silver lining for employees and professionals everywhere. I'm excited to be at your session and to learn more. So is there anything else about Greenhouse Open, that you're excited about?
I think, look, the fact that it's an in-person event really excites me. I think that socialization needs to happen. Community in the HR people candidate experience space. I feel like the last 2 years hasn't been at the social level I would want to see. I love that I'm seeing so many more HR folks and people folks that are creating open source content, right? And that are truly like sharing knowledge. And I think that's what I'm excited about, is going there and gaining knowledge and having that opportunity to engage with people that is in a similar role than me, with my peers in the industry, and start sharing ideas and knowledge and how sort of further built this community in the space. Something I've learned from, just joining a few virtual communities during the pandemic. I certainly felt very lonely as a VP of people at the time. And even previously, an HR career can be very lonely in one company. I have a tremendous internal team that builds that social level, but sometimes having that external interaction and finding out what's happening in the world, what are the key trends that other companies are seeing is missed. And so I joined a few communities, and it was just incredible what I've learned during that time, the amount of knowledge sharing that happened, right? And I'm seeing a drive towards also a lot of public content, and it's something I'm advocating a lot for. And so, one, I'm keen to meet like-minded peers from the industry. I'm very keen to share the stage with Jane. As I mentioned, I think Good Time has done some really interesting work, and the features they're building in products like Greenhouse has been exciting to experience, but also to really hear about how others are utilizing products that are similar to Greenhouse and remote, and how they are using those integrations and how they can use it. Going through hypergrowth at a company, I've learned a lot about that tech stack and what you can and can't do, and how you can leverage even your single sign-on platforms, right, to start linking APIs and topics and make things happen automatically. And that is so necessary during growing years. And I think a ton of people that are attending that is either going through some sort of change or growth, right? It's one of the two. And if the change is about, hybrid, remote work, or in office work, I certainly hope to influence the decision makers that haven't decided yet to consider globally distributed teams and why. But also to listen and hear what people are thinking right now that are my peers and the problems and the things that they're struggling with.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I think you just summed up why this is one of my favorite events, because it's, I learn, and at these events I'm learning from you today, and I can't wait to learn more at Greenhouse Open. And I'm going to I know there are a lot of folks watching this who are really interested in what you have to say in remote, and but we're out of time. So the way to learn more is to go to Greenhouse Open. And once again, that's happening on the 24th and 25th of May at the Javits Center in New York City. Links are here wherever you're seeing this to reserve your seat. And Nadia, I want to thank you for your time. I know how busy you are and how much growth you're experiencing. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, George. Thanks for having me. And I look forward to meeting you in person at Greenhouse Open.
Oh, me too. And thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you at Greenhouse Open.